Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. On today's tutorial, I'll be explaining in detail on how I cut and sew this beautiful dress that is displaying on the screen. The good thing about this tutorial is that you'll be learning the easiest method to sew a perfect jumpsuit for all body sizes. You also learn how to make a jumpsuit with lining and how to cut and attach a shoulder pad perfectly. Just make sure you watch till the end and don't skip any part so that you won't miss out on any important detail. If you are new to my channel, you are welcome. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button to join the family, and if you're a returning subscriber, thanks for all your support. Okay, this is the beautiful Ankara fabric that I'll be using for this project. I made use of 5 years. Also have this crepe fabric that I'll be using for the zipper placket. You can use doll face satin or any fabric of your choice. I have my shoulder pad here. I'll be using it to show you how you can attach your shoulder pad perfectly. Using shoulder pad is optional. This dress have a shoulder pad, that's why I want to show you how you can attach it. Okay, I'll be drafting on this pattern paper because of the little alteration I'm going to be making on the shoulder because of the shoulder pad. If you are not using a shoulder pad, you can cut directly on your fabric. I'll mark out my starting point. From my shoulder to my chest line is 9 inches. From my shoulder to my bust point is 11 inches. From my shoulder to my half length is 17.5. I have 0.75 for my zipper allowance. You can use half inch, but don't use more than 0.75. all right. The next thing now is to start marking my horizontal measurements. So my shoulder width is 16 inches. I'll divide it by 2. I have 8 inches. I'll mark it here. Also mark it on the chest line so that I can get a straight line. After marking it, you divide your round bust by 4. Or for me, I'll just divide my round waist by 4 because it's almost the same thing. So my round waist is 40 divided by 4. I have 10. So I will mark the 10 inches here. I'll add 1 inch for that intake, and I'll also add 1.5 inches for sewing allowance. After that, I will roll it straight up. This will now form my round bust measurement. If I confirm it, is up to quarter of my round bust plus the 1.5 inches I added. You can measure your own the way you normally input your body measurement. All right, so the next thing now is to come down by 1.5 inches for my shoulder line. Please make use of 1.5 inches. This is because of the shoulder pad. So for the neck width, I will mark 3 inches. If you're a small person, use 2.5 for the width and 2.5 for the depth. For my neck depth, I use 3 inches also, that's 3 by 3. My round neck measurement is 16 inches, so I will still confirm it later for you to see. So I will make a square line. After making a square line, I will curve the neckline. To guide you, I will just come out by 1 inch from this angle. This will enable me to curve the armhole accurately. So I will curve it the way you see me doing. After that, you come down by 1.5 inches from your shoulder line. I know why I'm emphasizing on it. After that, you can now slant it to the neck width the way you see me doing. So the next thing now is to divide the chest line by 2. I'll get the midpoint. I'll come in by 0.75. I want to curve my armhole, so you follow what I'm doing. After curving the armhole, the next thing is to mark my dart. This dress have a waist dart. My nipple to nipple point measurement is 9 inches. If I divide it by 2, I have 4.5. So on the bust point, I came down by 1 inch. So I also mark the 4.5 there. After that, I'll make a straight line. Can you see? So I will take half inch on the both that leg, and I will slant it this way. The half inch on the both side is 1 inch. That's why I replace the 1 inch for that intake. So if I measure the length of the dart, I have 6.5 inches. You write it down so that when you are sewing your dart, you know where to stop your stitching. Next thing I'll be doing now is to alter the shoulder line because of the shoulder pad. So I have my shoulder pad here. The width of this shoulder pad is half inch. You can buy the one of 1 inch or 0.75, or you can still double the half inch to give you 1 inch. For me, I don't want it to be so big, that's why I make it of half inch. So because I'm using half inch shoulder pad, I'll be coming up by half inch from this side of the shoulder. If you're using 1 inch shoulder pad, you come up by 1 inch. So I'll mark half inch here. So the next thing now is to make the line straight. To do that, I will come down by 0.25 here. You can also make it half inch. So from there now, I will rule it straight the way you see me doing. I don't want that angle to be sharp, I want it to be straight. This line that I'm shading is my new shoulder line, that's why I'll be cutting it out. If you're not using a shoulder pad, you can as well leave your shoulder slant this way. There's no need of raising it up by half inch. Please note that using shoulder pad is totally optional. I mentioned it earlier. So I'll go ahead now and cut it off. To cut it off, you have to fold your zipper allowance in so that you can cut your neckline. I'll go ahead now and cut it off. If you are new to my channel and you love what I do here, you can support my channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking and sharing my video. If you want to cut directly on your fabric, you can just come down by 0.5 from your shoulder line and make your shoulder slant straight instead of slanting it. So the next thing now is to cut the back part. I have my lines here. I've gone ahead to mark my shoulder line. I've also input my round body measurement, the same thing I did on the front back, and my dart too. The length of the back dart is also 6.5 inches. For the back neck width, I use 3 inches. For the neck depth, I use half inch. If you're a slim person, use 2.5 inches for the width and half inch for the depth. So I will curve it the way you see me doing. I make a square line. On the angle, I use half inch to curve it the way you see me doing. So the next thing I do now is to come down by 1 inch for back shoulder slant. I will slant it. For the front, I took 1.5. For the back shoulder slant, mark 1 inch. I also divide my chest line by 2, come in by half inch. For front, I came in by 0.75. For back, come in by half inch. You now curve your armhole. This will give you that perfect fitted armhole. When you want to attach your sleeve, you don't even need to trim your armhole again. It will just give you that perfect sleeve. So I will come up by half inch for the back also. So I will just make a straight line. This one is straight already. No need of coming down by 0.25 on this side. Just rule it straight the way I did. Alright. After altering the shoulder, I'll go ahead now and cut it out. So I have my back and front here. Can you see that? I told you my neck width is 16 inches. So if I measure it now, I'll just fold my zipper allowance. I measure what I have on the front neck. I have 5 inches. That's 5 plus 5, that is 10. For the back, I have 3 inches. 3 plus 3 is 6. I calculated 3 plus 3 because your fabric will be on fold. So you can confirm your neck measurement before you transfer to your fabric. That's one good thing about drafting on a pattern paper. The next thing now is to draft the lower part, that's the trouser part. So I have my pattern paper here. I left 1 inch on this side. As this video progresses, you understand the reason why I left 1 inch. So to get the full length of the jumpsuit, I'll minus the half length, which is 17.5. So I'll be using 58 inches for my jumpsuit length, both hemming allowance included. After getting the length, I'll come down by 10 inch to mark my hip line. To get your hip line, you divide your actual hip measurement by 4 and you minus 1.5 inches. My actual hip is my natural hip measurement. Don't use padded hip to get your hip line. To get my crotch depth, I divided my enhanced hip, which is 48 by 4. I got 12 inches. My knee length is 20 inches and the full length. You add your hemming allowance. So I will rule my lines out the way you see me do it. If you want to wear hip enhancement short pants, please put it on when you want to take your measurement for your jumpsuit. So I will divide my hip measurement by 4. I have 12 inches. I also mark it on my crotch depth line so that I can make a straight line. After marking it out, the next thing now is to mark my waist measurement. So I will be marking it from this line. So I will divide my waist by 4. I will mark it. I will add 0.75 for the zip allowance. The same thing I did on the upper part when I was drafting it. You add it. If you are using 1 inch, you add. If you are using half inch, you add. So I will now curve it to the hip line the way you see me doing. To get a perfect crotch extension for all body sizes, you divide your round hip by 20. So my hip is 48. If I divide it by 20, I have 2.4. I will approximate it to 2.5. So I will mark 2.5 on the crotch extension line. So I will mark it this way, the way you see me doing. In order not to make your curve too deep, you can come out by 1 inch from this angle. I will curve it. Don't make your curve too deep. If you make it too deep, your crotch will be too tight. So I will divide the crotch line by 2. I want to get the crease line. That's the midpoint of the crotch. I will also mark it on the knee line. I just want to make a straight line to the hem of the trouser. I will come down by 3 inches from my crotch depth line. This 3 inches is for my thigh line. That's my lap depth measurement, and it's standard for all body sizes. So I will make a straight line now to indicate. So after that, I will now divide my round lap by 2. My round lap is 29. If I divide it by 2, I have 14.5. So the 14.5, I will share it on the both line. I will mark 7.25 on this side and 7.25 on this side also, the way you see me doing. After that, I will connect it. After connecting it, I will divide my round nail by 2. My round nail is 20 inches divided by 2, I have 10. So I will divide the 10 by 2. That's 5 inches on this side and 5 inches on this side also. I will connect it. So after connecting it, I will roll it straight down to the hem. Please note that if you are making a fitted trouser, you will divide your ankle the same way you did on the lap and on the knee line. Alright, so I will still alter this pattern when I'm transferring to my fabric. So on the waistline, I will come down by 1 inch. This is to eliminate the excess folding on the waistline. So you follow what I'm doing. You slant it the way I'm slanting it. After that, I will now add 1 inch for my sewing allowance. I'll just add it straight down. On this side, I will add half inch for joining the crotch. If you don't like drafting on a pattern paper, I have other tutorials on my channel on how to cut and sew a jumpsuit trouser. I use freehand method for those ones. You can check it out on my channel. After making the dotted line, you can connect it. After connecting the lines, I'll go ahead now and cut it out. I'll be cutting this slant that I make on the waistline later. I have my back part here, so I will place my front on the back part. Before I start, let me just cut out this slant I made on the front part. After placing your front on the back part, you make sure you leave about 2.5 inches on the upper and the side, the way I did. So I will use my pin to hold it. After holding it, the first thing I'll do is to come in by 1 inch from this crotch line. The reason is that our center back is deep. If you don't do this, your dress will not relax well on the back. So I will slant it to the crotch, the front crotch, the way you see me doing. Just follow what I'm doing, you'll get it right. After slanting it, I will curve it out to meet the front crotch. Can you see that? I will highlight it now for you to see it clearly. So this is what I have when I was done highlighting it. After highlighting it, I will be raising my back part by 2 inches. This is because of our buttocks. If you don't do this, it won't cover your buttocks very well. If you have a small bum bum, you can mark 1 or 1.5 inches. So I've slanted it the way you see me doing. After that, I'll be replacing this 1 inch I came in on this side. So I'll mark 1 inch here. After marking it out this way, I'll be adding ease allowance on the hip line. This is because of our big bum bum. So you mark 1. This 1 inch work for all body sizes. I'll be using it for my different clients and it worked perfectly well. So I'll connect it the way you see me doing. The next thing is to mark my back crotch extension. So I will divide my hip by 10. If you can remember, I divided the front part by 20. So if I divide it, I have 4.5. So I will add half inch to it. It's from this line that you will insert the measurement that you got. So if I divide 48 by 10, I have 4.5. I added half inch for ease allowance. I have 5 inches. So I will mark 5 inches from here now, the way you see me doing. After marking it, I'll connect it. Can you see what I have? The back crotch is longer than the front. So I will slant it now to meet the front part. Okay, let me complete this side first. I will add half inch on the knee line. Half inch straight down. So after adding it, I will connect it from the knee to the hip. Can you see? Please note that I'm not adding any other sewing allowance on the back part because I've already added on the front. So I will connect this side now the way you see me doing. Slant it to meet the front part. Can you see? So after that now, I will go ahead and cut it out. After cutting it out, I will go ahead now to transfer all my pattern to the fabric. So I will cut the trouser part first. So I folded my fabric into two. I'll place the front part on it. Make sure you place it on the center because I will be adding flare on the down part. I will first of all pin my pattern down on the fabric. Before I add my flare on the down part, I will first of all come up by 3 inches from the knee line, depending on where you want your flare to start. So I will mark my 3 inches here. I want my flare to start on these 3 inches. After marking it, I will pull it straight to indicate it. So on the down part, I will mark 4.5 inches. If you want your own flare to be fuller than mine, you can take 5 or 6 inches. So I will also mark 4.5 inches on this side. After that, I will slant it to meet this 3.5 inches I came up from the knee line. After slanting it, I'll go ahead and cut it out. After cutting it out, I will repeat the same thing on the back part. I've gone ahead to fold my fabric and I place my back pattern on my folded fabric. So I will now measure down 20 inches for my knee length. You know, we did not did any markings on the back part. After getting the 20 inches, I will come up by 3 inches. The same thing I did on the front part. So I will also mark 4.5 inches for my flare. I will slant it the way you see me doing. After slanting it, I'll go ahead and cut it out off camera. Please, when you're making your slant line, make sure you use your stretch ruler. I'm done cutting it out. I will cut the same thing on my lining and I will come back and show you. I'm done transferring all my pattern to the fabric. I added half inch on the shoulder and on the armhole. I slashed my front part open because of the zipper allowance. For the back, you will cut it on fold. I will notch my zipper allowance to indicate it. You also notch it on your lining. I will also notch my that leg so that when I want to sew it, I won't find it difficult to locate. So I also notch it on the lining. This is my back part. Added half inch on the shoulder and the armhole. Notch my that leg on the back part too. I've also cut my lining for the lower part, that's the trouser part. My lining is shorter than the main fabric, so the length I use for my lining is 20 inches. I added 1 inch for folding. Can you see that? So your lining will be shorter than the main fabric. I've gone ahead to iron my interface on the main fabric and on the lining. I use stay for my fabric and soft gum stem for the lining. So I did it for the front and back. So I'll go to my sewing machine now and sew the dart with 1/2 inch. I'll follow the notch and sew. I'll stop at 6.5 inches. That's the length of my dart. So you sew for the main fabric and for the lining. Before I join the lower and the upper part together, I'll show you how I cut the pocket. So this is my front part. I remove my lining because I'm not cutting pocket on the lining. I have my pattern here. I'll be using it to show you how I got the width of my pockets. From the sewing allowance line, I mark 2.5 inches. As a whole, I have 3.5 inches. In case you are cutting directly on your fabric, you mark 3.5 inches depending on the sewing allowance you took. So on my fabric now, I'll mark the 3.5 inches. I will mark the length, which is 7. I will curve it this way. After curving it, I'll cut it out. I have this piece of fabric that I cut out. I'll be using it for my pocket bag. I cut it on fold. The width is 10 inches and the length is 13 inches. I cut out 2 for each side of the trouser. So for one part, I will take one piece this way. I will put it under the way you see me doing. I will cut it out, just one piece. Just cut it the way you see me doing. Can you see what I have? Can you see that? So the next thing I'll do now is to use the other one to cut for the other side of the trouser. I've done that already. To sew it, you place it right side to the right side. You sew with 1/2 inch. I'll stitch it and come back and show you. After stitching it, I have this. So I will give it a notch. You can as well open it up and top stitch on it. Just spread it out this way and you make a top stitch on the pocket side. So this is the one that I've sewn already. I will flip it this way. Just arrange it and give it a good ironing. After ironing it, I will now arrange it. You fold it back this way. After folding it back, I will iron it down. After ironing it, I will sew it this way. Just go to your sewing machine and hold it down with 1/2 inch. Sew the down part and sew the waistline. This is what I had when I was done sewing it. I've secured it. Can you see? So the next thing now is to trim the waistline. So I will measure the 3.5 inches I took for the pocket. I want to curve the waistline. After measuring it, I will slant it back to the hip. Can you see what I have? You can also use your lining to confirm whether it's accurate. Okay, I'll just go ahead now and trim it out. It's equal now with my lining. I have the 2 side front here. I've also gone ahead to sew my dart for the upper part. Please note that I did not add any dart on the trouser parts. I don't like adding that on my trouser. This is my lining. I've also sewn my lining. I will join the down and upper part together. This is my front. Can you see that everything is equal now? So I'll join it with 1/2 inch. So join my lining separately. Before I join my back, I will first of all close the back crotch. This is my back. I will close the crotch this way. After closing, you have something like this. Can you see? Now join the upper and lower part together. Just join it with 1/2 inch. Can you see it's equal? So after joining it, you join the lining also. This is my front part. You open press the waistline and iron it very well. You also do the same thing for the back part. Make sure you give it a good ironing. Just open the seam up and iron it properly. So you also do the same thing on your lining, both for the front and back. Can you see what I have for my lining? This is my front part and this is the back part. If you have watched up to this length and you are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel to support me. So I have my front here. I want to fix my zipper. So the length of my zip is 24 inches. I will measure down 24 inches, or you can just come up by 2 inches from your crotch extension. Your zipper will go down to your crotch extension, so that when you want to pull out your dress, you won't find it difficult. So to place it, you come down by ½ inch. I'll first of all sew the 2 inches I came off from the crotch. I'll sew it down first. After sewing it down, I will go ahead now to attach my zipper. Make sure you place it on the 0.75 we took for our zipper allowance. I notch mine to indicate. For my lining, I will also close the crotch with 2 inches, or you can just measure 2.5 inches. For the main fabric, I measure up to 2 inches. For the lining, you measure 2.5 inches. So you just close it up to the 2.5 inches. I will do it off camera and come and show you. I've done it already. Can you see? I've attached my zipper. Can you see that the zipper went straight to the crotch? I used the 0.75 for my zipper allowance to sew. This is my lining. I've also sewn the crotch part. From the crotch extension, I came up by 2.5 inches. This is what I have. Before I turn my fabric with the lining, I will cut out a strap of fabric that I'll be using for my placket. I'll measure the length I have here. After getting the length, you add extra 5 inches so that you will not run shortage of fabric. I'll cut out 2, so I've already cut it out. I cut out for the 2 sides. The width is 2.5 inches, and after folding it, I will have 1.5 inches. I've gone ahead to iron my stain on the crepe fabric, and I also folded half inch. Can you see what I have? You fold it the same way I did. So after folding it, I have 1.5 inches. That is the width of my strap. So to attach it now, I will open up my zipper. After opening it up, I will place it the way you see me do. Make sure that the zipper allowance is facing you. You don't sew the zipper allowance together because of the lining. So I will pin it down. Make sure it's close to the zipper teeth. Take your time to pin it down. I make sure that I spread out the zipper allowance. I'm not pinning it together. I will just take my time and pin it up to the waistline. When I get to the waistline, I will now shift it a little. You hold it with a pin. So you spread it out. Make sure you spread your trouser. After pinning it down, I will still measure the space that I have for you to confirm. So on the waistline, I have 1 inch. If you go down a little, you get 1.5. So I will arrange it now. After arranging it, I'll sew at the tip to hold it down. So I've also gone ahead to pin the other side. Can you see what I have? I did not pin down the zipper allowance. Before you start stitching your zipper placket, you can pin the zipper allowance together the way you see me doing. I'm just giving you the guideline on how to sew it. Alright, so after pinning it, I will still clamp the what I have here. I have 1 inch. You do the same thing on the other side so that it can be equal. You can also use your hemming gum to iron it down, but before you use your hemming gum, make sure you have confirmed the space that you have that is equal so that it will not end up staining your fabric. You insert it inside and iron it down. After ironing it, you stitch it on the both edge to secure it. So I have 1.5 inches here. So if you go down to the knee line, I want to measure the knee line now. I have about 6 inches space. You measure it on the both side. The 6 inches, you measure it straight down. So I'll go to my sewing machine now and sew it down. When you're sewing it, don't sew down your zipper allowance, please. I've gone ahead to stitch down the zipper placket. Can you see I did not sew down my zipper allowance when I was stitching the zipper placket? So this is what I have. You remove your pins. When I was stitching the zipper placket, I made sure I did not stitch down the pocket. I folded it this way. I used pin to hold it. So this is what I have. Very neat. So the next thing now is to turn it with my lining. I have my lining here. Just watch closely what I'm doing. It's not hard, very simple. If you practice it, you find out that it's not hard. So you place your lining this way, right side to right side. You pin it. Make sure you pin it down before you start stitching. Pin it up to the crotch. After pinning it, I will turn it to the other side so that I can also pin the other side. The way I'm pinning it is the way I'm going to sew. I'm just taking my time to show you so that you understand, because I'm going to stitch it off camera. When you want to stitch it, you follow your fabric side, you shift it close to the first stitch you made when you are attaching your zipper. That's how you will stitch it. So I'll do it now, come back and show you. I've already stitched it down. This is what I have when I was done. Can you see? It's looking neat already. So I will now sew down the crotch. Just arrange it properly. After arranging it, you can give it a good ironing. Please take your time to iron your dress, because that's what will give you a neat work. Can you see what I have? So I will now close the lap side. Just stitch down the tie. I'll stitch it down this way. I'll also do the same thing on the other leg. Before you stitch it down, make sure you fold the hem of your lining. You now stitch down the two sides with 1/2 inch. I will repeat the same thing on the other side of the trouser. You do the same thing on this leg. After that, I will use my lining to turn the back part also. You place the lining wrong side facing the wrong side of the fabric, the way you see me doing. After placing it that way, you stitch down the neckline. You stitch down the true side also. After that, you now sew down your crotch. This is what I have when I was done. So I'll go to my weaving machine now and weave everything down. Weave it so that you have a neat finishing. All right, you know that if you're making this for a client, you must weave it. So before you shape the dress, make sure you weave everything. All right, so I'm done weaving it. Can you see what I have? I've weaved the crotch, the leg, the side. So to close the dress, I'll first of all sew the shoulder. You sew the shoulder this way. Just place the shoulder together and stitch. After that, you now sew your crotch. Sew this side with 1/2 inch that we added when we are drafting the pattern. You match the crotch together this way. Make sure the stitch line is matching. Use your pin to hold it. After holding it, you now sew it with 1/2 inch. After sewing it, you can now shape the two sides. Just use the sewing allowance you added when you are drafting the pattern to shape it. So I've also weaved the shoulder. Can you see how I stitch the shoulder? I stitch it that way because of the shoulder pad. You can as well confirm your body measurements before you can shape your dress. So you do that. All right, so I'm done shaping it. Can you see what I have? So I will open press the sizing and iron it, give it a good ironing. So I will turn it to the right side now for you to see what I have. This is the outcome. So I will go ahead now and fix my sleeve. I'll be doing that off camera. After that, thing is to show you how I cut the strap that I used to pipe the neckline. So I have this piece of fabric. As you can see, it doesn't stretch on this part, so I will determine the stretchy part, which is this side. That is, I'm cutting it in bias form. So I will measure the width of my neckline, which is 16 inches. I added extra 1 inch to it, so I'll make a straight line as a guide. So I'll measure the width of the strap. I use 2.5 inches for the width, so I'll go ahead and cut it out. Can you see that it's stretchy? So I will now sew it to my neckline. To do that, I'll just fold the tip with 1/2 inch this way. I'll place the right side of the strap facing the wrong side of the main fabric. I'll stitch it 1/2 inch. After stitching it, you have something like this. Can you see what I will now fold it this way. I'll fold it again to cover the sewing allowance. Can you see how I'm folding it? After folding it, you now top stitch on it. Just take your time to do it. I'll do it off camera and come back and show you what I have. So before you stitch it, you can pin it down on the center. Just fold it before stitching it down. For me, I can control my stitch. So this is what I have when I was done. Can you see? It's looking neat already. You can iron it if you want. So the next thing now is to fix the shoulder pad. So I have this piece of fabric here. I'll use it to wrap the shoulder pad. I will just trim my shoulder pad the way you see me doing. After trimming it, I will use the piece of fabric to cover it. Please don't worry, I'll still make a tutorial again on how to fix a shoulder pad. This video is getting too long, that's why I'm trying to fast forward it. So after trimming it, you now fold the excess allowance and use your hand needle to tack it. So you open up your zipper. After that, you fold your shoulder pad into two to determine the midpoint. The part I folded is the part that have the height. So you now place it on the shoulder line here on the sewing allowance. You can weave your shoulder first before you sew it. So after pinning it, I'll go to my sewing machine and stitch it down. You can also use your hand needle to tack it down if you don't want to stitch on it. For me, I use my sewing machine to stitch it down. This is what I have when I was done stitching it down. I can go to my sewing machine now and weave it. Thanks for watching. Bye.